Hi there, I'm Geraldine Ryan-Lush. I'm finally getting around to doing a reading and telling you a little bit about this novel, Seashells, The SEASHELL'S LAMENT. It's a contemporary fiction, a love story actually set in Newfoundland. It has done very well. It has won a Canada Book Award and has received many very good reviews from some prestigious sources. And it's very popular, and it has done in literary stance as well. It concerns, in actual fact, the genesis of the novel was inspired by the tradition of foreign fishermen coming to Newfoundland waters for centuries. They have been traveling here for hundreds of years. Through those centuries and decades, there was always stigma and conflict surrounding these men because they were often accused of raping our waters. Thus, when they would be here, they would be ostracized, bullied in some cases, in a lot of cases. There was always tension between these men and native Newfoundlanders. So I decided to explore that theme and explore that happening, that common happening over the centuries in Newfoundland and Labrador. I explored it in a modern vein with characters I created, Jacqueline O'Reilly and Alexander Bovka, two people who met quite by accident one Christmas and fell in love and were forced to separate for almost a decade. I won't get into the ending or what happened after they got back together or whatever, but that is the genesis of the story, that is the genesis of the plot line. So I will leave it up to you to find out what about these two people. He's from the Baltic states and she is from St. John's, Newfoundland, and they met while he was here for 3 weeks one Christmas while his ship was in repair. So the forces of fate were against them, and a lot of heartbreak and tragedy ensues because of these antagonizing, conflicting forces that were against him from every angle. So I'm going to read a portion of it, and you can find it wherever books are sold, whether online or physical stores. You can find this novel, and it would be a good Christmas gift for someone who wants a good, suspenseful story, drama, tension. It's been praised for the characterization and other things as well. So I will commence to read, and like I said, I hope you enjoy. Where I'm reading, I'm going to read a portion from They have been apart for a long time. Neither one of them know what happened with the other because they're in two different countries. So something happens to Alexander. His name is Sasha. That's what his friends and family call him, Sasha. Something happens to him, and Jacqueline doesn't know what it is, so she just assumes that he, she received the Dear Jane letter, so she assumes she was totally rejected, and she was heartbroken for years. So she travels to Europe due to her career, and I'm going to read where she travels. He sees it in the newspaper that she's going to be arriving. This is 8 years later after they met, and they know nothing about each other for those 8 years. So she has a reading to do at this event, this festival in Sweden. And where he lives in Stockholm, which is not that far from where she's reading. So he flies there with his daughter, and because he wants to see her. He just wants to see her, that's all. And she doesn't know that he knows that she's going to be there, because they happen to see it in a newspaper. So she has no idea he's going to be there, but he's there. And anyway, I will read about this part in the story. I'll read from where he is sitting in the courtyard and he's waiting for her to appear to do her reading. Alexander Bavka sat in his seat in the courtyard in Gamla Stan, next to Tatiana. He was placed in one of the center aisles, close enough to see and hear the proceedings, well enough, but far enough away that there would be little chance of Geraldine seeing and recognizing him among the crowd. He had planned it that way. He and Tatiana had flown from Tallinn the night before and had spent the day relaxing, taking in the sights and sounds of this, the most historic part of all Sweden. He would have liked to have the time to tour the archipelago, the 24,000 little islands, but he would save it for another time. He had one main agenda for coming here today, and that was to see Geraldine O'Reilly. During the past 2 weeks leading up to this trip, he had been feeling better than he had in years, certainly since the terrible accident 8 years before. His blue eyes scaled the crowd, those seated and those still standing, more than once. They scanned the crowds for her face. She was there somewhere. He had checked and double-checked the venues and notices regarding the festival, and her name and reading time were still listed. Just before the readings were about to begin, Tatiana had rushed up to him excitedly, holding a copy of Ashes of Sea Wind, which she had found among the book displays. "Look, Papa, I bought this for you. It's her poetry. Isn't it amazing?" "She is amazing, Papa. I've read some of her poems." She looked at him and smiled, settling into her chair, turning the book over and reading the back, the front, the dedication, with her usual interest in new literature. She had always liked to write since a child, and once more Sasha's eyes misted over as he realized the forces of fate that had made his Tatiana and his Geraldine so alike, worlds away from each other. He let her sit and read. He would read it later. For now he wanted to see his Jackie in the flesh, hear her voice, breathe the air she breathed, if only for a few stolen moments in time. He kept his eyes glued to the podium. She was somewhere in that crowd. Any minute now her name would be announced, and he didn't want to miss it. The readings went on. He thought the moment would never come. Finally someone spoke. Poet Geraldine O'Reilly from Newfoundland, Canada. Beads of sweat were forming on his forehead. His breath caught in his throat. He faintly heard Tatiana whisper, "Papa, there she is," as she nudged him gently in the ribs. There she was, walking towards the podium. That fluid walk, that grace. God, how could he ever forget that? He could feel every muscle in his body tense. If only he could look right in her beautiful green eyes right now, hold her hand in his. She was a vision of loveliness, wearing a sleeveless, light and airy yellow shift dress and gold-toned, low-heeled sandals with the toes open. The dress set off the tan on her arms and accentuated her still shapely legs. She was fresh as a flower as always, he thought as he watched her. No one else existed in the universe for him at that moment, except the two of them, locked in some time zone that had magically wiped away the past 8 years, the loneliness of them both. He grappled with sudden tears that smarted and had to wipe his glasses. She was beginning. He could see her face more clearly now. "Good evening, everyone. I am very happy to be here. I shall read to you 3 selections from a recent collection of poetry, Ashes of Sea Wind. Seashell, found at low tide, little lacquered brown, scent of shaving lotion, pungent, poignant, mystic, like Isles of Arabia or Bengal. What father, husband, brother dipped his work-worn fingers in its tiny crucible, performing small ablutions while waves rolled and crashed and thundered, and he dared to dream of little girls and home. She had been inspired to write that poem long ago, when Alexander Bavka had brought a tiny varnished brown seashell he had hand-painted for her, and which she had put on their shelf of memories. She read 2 other poems, losing herself and losing her trepidation, as she always did, as she got caught up in her work. Sasha watched her, transfixed. She was still the same, just better, he thought, so professional. But then she had always been professional when it came to her work. He just had not had the chance to see that part of her before now. She was focused on nothing, only her poetry during these moments, on touching souls, like-minded souls, with her words and images. She wore reading glasses, which she had put on when she started reading. She was a powerful reader, without dramatics or undue body postures. She was a natural. For a moment he found himself being transported beyond the woman, the love of his life, to the true artist that she really was, and he felt his own artistic spirit melding ever deeper into hers. What had happened to him in St. John's, Newfoundland? Did a channeled force greater than him deem that he should meet this woman, and, through the pain and joy, or in spite of it, also deem the release of his own potential as a painter and as a human being? He loved her ever more deeply now. He could never measure the rivers of love that would only deepen and grow fuller through years, through his aging, through his life. There was applause when she finished, and he sat watching her, loving her from afar. He watched her move away and make her way back to her seat at the front of the courtyard. Geraldine had finished her reading and was about to take her seat to listen to the rest of the readings when she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. She turned around. A girl stood there, a pretty blonde young woman, holding a copy of Ashes of Sea Wind. "Pardon me, Mrs. O'Reilly, I like your work. Would you please do me the honor of autographing this book?" She spoke fluent English with an accent that sounded hauntingly familiar, like a bittersweet recording of some beautiful music that hadn't been listened to in a long time, but its source, its title, remained elusive. "Would you do me the honor?" Jacqueline had heard that before as well. Someone had said that to her a long time ago. Someone she still loved. "Of course. To whom shall I address it?" She smiled, then looked at the girl waiting. The girl looked back with a strange look in those beautiful blue eyes. Deep, empathetic pools of instinct and awareness, as deep and cobalt blue as the oceans themselves. "Please address it to Tatiana Bavka." Jacqueline, pen in hand, was about to write her best wishes and signature on the title page, about to cite the correct spelling of the name, when she suddenly looked at the girl in disbelief, recognition slowly forming in her eyes. Tatiana Bavka. It was her, Sasha's daughter. There could be no denying it. The resemblance was striking. She was looking into the face and eyes of Alexander Bavka's precious child, all grown up and so like him. It was like looking at Sasha again. Her heart flipped. She felt faint for a few seconds. This could not be real. She just didn't blithely take a trip to Europe and run into the daughter of the man who had invaded her heart and soul since a misty night in St. John's in 1999. That kind of thing only happened in some very old Hollywood movie. The girl was still looking at her strangely in a kind of fascination, but also anticipation. Why is she looking at me like that? Why is she waiting? What is she waiting for? Does she know? And in the stretch of that moment, when the two women When all the vast world loved the man Alexander Bavka most, stared at each other. Jacqueline knew she did know. She handed the girl back the book, barely hearing her whispered thank you, and stood frozen, watching her walk back through the aisles, watched her stop before a man, say something, then the girl and the man got up, preparing to leave. When he stood up and she could see the back of him, she knew. The beloved back of his head, the tall, straight manliness of him, the warrior-like set of his shoulders, the dignity. Oh, she had never forgotten that, his beauty. Her feet started to walk fast of their own accord as she rushed down the aisles and through the crowd wandering about outside. He was getting further and further away, moving, not in a speedy fashion, but with a deliberate certainty, as if he were trying to avoid something or someone. Oh, Sasha, oh God, her heart cried. Is it really you? It is really you. Why are you here, Sasha? Why are you here? You came to see me, but why, oh why are you leaving? She was almost running now, but at last, almost out of breath, she stopped in front of him. Time stood still as they looked at each other. The elegant teacher turned poet, and the foreign shrimp fisherman turned painter, long ago from Ukraine, who had loved in a Newfoundland port. Down the long road of 8 years and oceans and confusion and hurt and tragedy and pain that separated them, they looked and remembered. People jostled them, people moved about, but they stood there, not seeing anything but the flesh and bone reality of each other. He was thinner, much thinner. His hair was graying but still abundant, and it was neatly cut. He was wearing glasses. He had a contemplative, intellectual look about him, but there were miles in those eyes, hard miles she knew he had travelled, while not yet noticing or knowing the core of the soul-destroying crevices and craters on the route. They looked at each other for long moments without speaking, his eyes unspeakably tender as they rested on her, but heavy with some unfathomable burden. Then he turned and started to walk away. Oh God, oh Sasha, why? Why didn't you speak? Where are you going? Why don't you tell me what happened? She said, her heart spoke. I need to know what happened. And then she sighed, the cane, and Tatiana's arm blinked in his, watchful, protecting. She saw the limp, the ever so slight hesitation, the slight determined struggle with which he took each step. Oh God Almighty, my Sasha, my darling, my beloved, this is what happened. You couldn't tell me. Oh, what am I going to do? Come back, come back. She wanted to run after him, but stood rooted to the spot. She recognized with only part of her brain fellow writers from the readings who were staring at her in shocked subtlety mixed with pity, as the tears streamed slowly down her face. But they were still life, like cardboard cutouts to her now, as movement and awareness returned to her body, mobilizing it. Her laminated nameplate hung askew on the left side of her dress, becoming undone as she ran. She had to find Victoria, get back to the hotel. She had to tell her. She had to cry. She had to somehow find him again. And with that, I leave you wondering, do they ever find each other? Like I said, the book can be bought anywhere. It can be ordered from Amazon worldwide. It can be ordered or bought at Chapters, North America, and it can be bought at Barnes & Noble and all over the place. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the reading, and as you can see, I have a little tree here. Little tree. I don't know what else I'll do before Christmas, but I got a little tree up. That's a start. There's lots of time, but I mean, on a night like this where it's snowing outside, it just seemed the thing to do. And this will make a great Christmas gift for somebody on your list. My name is Geraldine Ryan-Lush. The name of the book is The SEASHELL'S, LAMENT. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great night. Bye.